Okay. I believe we are live now. So, um, anytime you guys come in, I'm obviously going to be talking with you. But in this one, guys, welcome back, first of all, to another stream. And I want to have a conversation about SM squared as well as XDefiant because overall, I'm very, I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic for the future for a game like this. And there are a multitude of there are a multitude of games, or excuse me, there are a multitude of reasons of to think of why the game may not be successful, or maybe why the game will be successful, or should I say, in this point, games. But looking at it from the glass is half full sort of way, I think that there is a lot of potential for this franchise completely. So I kind of want to get into that. I want to go very in depth about it, and I want to talk about it. So we've got a solid hour, maybe hour and a half, give or take, and we're going to get right into it. So hopefully more people will show up in the chat here, and we're going to get right into it. As always, there's going to be a VOD. So for those of you guys that want to see the whole thing at some point in time later or whatever, you can kind of go back and watch for those of you guys that are into that sort of thing, or listen actually. Um, so without further ado, let's get into it because we have a lot to cover in such a short amount of time, and there's two games that we're talking about here, even though they kind of coincide. I think it's still important that we get into it. So, yeah, let's talk. So, X Defiant. Why am why am I very optimistic about X Defiant and SM squared and all that kind of stuff? And at the same time, I also want to talk about like how what's it called? How it's very interesting that Call of Duty has gone in the direction that it's gone in. But the thing is, ultimately, at the end of the day, Call of Duty, in terms of the Twitch arcade, or every single time you hear me say traditional, I mean that basically means the Twitch fast-paced arcade first-person shooter that is Call of Duty, right? So, um, uh, so traditional Call of Duty is no longer traditional. It's taken a change in a different direction, and it all started with Battle Royale back in 2019 and even 2018. But it wasn't until 2019 in Modern Warfare to where it there was the whole Warzone flavor, and then basically with Modern Warfare 2019's multiplayer design, well, because Battle Royale is so popular, thanks to Fortnite and a few others, it became very apparent that a lot of people like to play that certain way. So they're like, hey, you know what? We're going to implement this into multiplayer because people like playing Battle Royale. So it's like, hey, we're going to implement it into multiplayer. And then, and that's the way it's going to go because that's how people like to play now. And this is what they want to do and blah, blah, blah. So, but the thing is, before then, nobody was really complaining about, other than a few things that we wanted changed and things like that. Nobody was really complaining about, oh, Call of Duty sucks now. It's like, well, every single year, Call of Duty would consistently make number one in sales every single year, and the multiplayer kept on selling. And I mean, it was a winning formula. But the thing is, obviously, they wanted more, and then they changed in a different direction, and they started implementing battle royale type of style gameplay with more tacticalness into their traditional multiplayer, and that's why and how that kind of changed. Now, when you look at 2018 and before, the only time when Call of Duty never made first place was when Grand Theft Auto came out, right? Which was, in more recent times, it was Grand Theft Auto 5, even though it was a while ago. But that's the only game that would stop Call of Duty from being that number one juggernaut every single year, right? It was, what's it called? It was Grand Theft Auto 5, which was the last one that happened, right? Even Call of Duty content creators would briefly stop playing Call of Duty. What up, RMD? And upon stopping Call of Duty, they would be playing Grand Theft Auto 5, and they'd be making content on Grand Theft Auto. Like, whenever a Grand Theft Auto game comes out, people will stop playing whatever it is that they're playing, and they're going to play GTA, right? At least for a certain period of time. And it doesn't even matter if you're a content creator or not. Grand Theft Auto, the only way that you're not is if you just don't play Grand Theft Auto. So, now, with that being said, X Defiant is getting the kind of love and support that we have been wanting for a long time, and by good developers, and one of the lead developer being a guy that actually plays these type of games and is an above average gamer. And then it's also got a lot of support from pro players as well. And let's put it this way. Nobody plays these games as much as pro players. You know, if you think pros don't even understand pubs, then I'm sorry, but that's an ignorant point of view. You just don't know the facts. So nobody plays the game as much as pros do. There's very few people that do that are not pro players, and they know the game pretty much better than anybody else, right? Now, with that being said, um, the two types of games, like right now, Call of Duty is, what is it? It's a tactical arcade. No, excuse me. It was a traditional tactical arcade first person shooter, and then 2019 it changed. Okay, cool. Now it's more tactical, right? Well, who said that both can't coexist? Now, it's been said by some very wise people, of course, and rightfully so, that over the years there really hasn't been any other arcade fast-paced Twitch first-person shooter that survived that wasn't called Call of Duty. Like, the only type of game of that genre, of that flavor, that would survive would be Call of Duty. Like other games that did things like that wouldn't survive, no matter how good they were. And you're even talking about games that, for instance, added in the Call of Duty formula. Like, here's how Call of Duty was. Everybody back in the day, right, wanted to be Call of Duty. Everybody back in the day wanted to be Call of Duty. Halo, in Halo 4, implemented some Call of Duty into their game. In Halo 5, they even implemented some advanced movement mechanics. They even did that in Halo 4, but they did it more in Halo 5. But whatever. You know, everybody back in the day wanted to be Call of Duty. Now, everybody wants to be Fortnite or Battle Royale, right? Like, in every single multiplayer game that's released, everybody's like, whoa, it should have a Battle Royale. It should have a Battle Royale. Now, with Halo, I think, is the only exception. It's like, Halo needs a Battle Royale. And I'm not a Battle Royale player, and I, for one, would love to see how the community would react on the day when Battle Royale is finally released for Halo. Because it just goes so well together. They just go so well together. They've got the weapons, they've got the vehicles, they've got the, like, Halo has everything it needs for a hell of a Battle Royale. Now, the thing is, now everybody's trying to be Battle Royale, but the thing is, the arcade first-person shooter, in terms of popularity from a Call of Duty standpoint, before it changed into like this tactical shooter that it is now, it's like, well, when you think about it, it's like it didn't what's it called? Like, people were still playing it. Everybody still loved it. It was still number one. The only thing was, sometimes, you know, we liked certain ones more than others. Like, most people like Black Ops 2 more than they like Ghosts. Black Ops 1 was popular. I think most people like Black Ops 1 more than they like Modern Warfare 3 and all that stuff. So ultimately, Call of Duty, the arcade traditional first-person shooter, the Twitch fast-paced arcade first-person shooter that was arena style, that was Call of Duty, was still popular over the years. And then basically Infinity Ward just kind of gave that up and said, no, we're going to go in this direction. Whatever, cool, fine, whatever. But that doesn't mean that this game can't survive. Now, when you look at this game, Mark Rubin had an incredible tweet going up, and I was very happy to see that. It put a smile on my face, and I was very happy to see it. And you know what that tweet was? That tweet was that they were expecting at the very most 500,000 players to play the XDefiant beta, which was a closed beta, by the way, a closed beta, right? And they were expecting at the most of 500,000 people. You guys want to know how many players played? Over 1 million. And this was in a beta that was a true beta experience that was not optimized, right? You had the server issues and like that, but the transparency of the developers and the communication that was up the wazoo, which was awesome, between the players and the developers. And then, of course, you got Aches in there, who's a pro, who's doing all that shit too. Like, and these people actually play their games, and they know their games, and they understand their games. It's like the transparency level was amazing. So that brought it up to a whole other level, right? So when you look at it from a transparency standpoint, and when you look at it from a game development standpoint, okay, you got to remember that ultimately these are two of the biggest pieces of the formula that lead you to success. Because with most games, what they'll do is they'll communicate a little bit before launch, and then once the game is out, or maybe a week after the game is out, it's like nothing but crickets, right? whether the game is successful or not. But what Mark Rubin and crew are looking to do is like to completely be transparent throughout because they want to support the game and they want feedback from people. And we're not just talking about in the form of content creation, we're talking about in the form of like tweets and just having discussions and stuff like that. And I absolutely love that. And I can't wait to see what the numbers are going to be like when, or should I say, if an open beta gets released. Like an open beta with the servers optimized, which they've already said that they've already pretty much done that. And they're just continuing to perfect it at this point. Like with optimized servers that feel good, right? And an open beta to where all you have to do is get online and download, as opposed to having to, you know, get the email stuff going, and then you need to go here to do this or go here to do that, and then you need to get the code here, and then it goes here. You know, there's a lot of extra steps when the beta is closed, right? So you're gonna see really good players that are playing this closed beta, especially if all of them are just getting one code for themselves, right? So all those million people that played are like your hardcore audience. Like a majority of them are like your hardcore audience that love this sort of thing. But with that being said, when it opens and then when it releases, I would really love to see what those numbers are or hear about what those numbers are, because I think it's going to be much bigger. And back in the day in Call of Duty, we would see what in Black Ops 1, you would see like at one point you'd see like 1 million people on in the multiplayer. And then when Black Ops 2 came out, I mean, you would see during its life cycle, you would see a consistent 600,000, give or take, on the Xbox. You know, you get the point. So when you have this level of support, and when you have this level, this many people playing, and it's a free-to-play title, and there's transparency going on, and you've got its own game genre, which is the arena first-person shooter, right? Which there's plenty of room for it to be had in the community in shooters. You know, it may not be as popular as it once was, but that doesn't mean that it can't be again, and it doesn't mean that it should be obsolete or, you know, not existing. And the reason why I say this is because I want it to be like it's its own type of genre to an extent. It's its own type of gameplay, and they can coexist. Tactical games can in fact coexist around arena fast-paced Twitch shooters. They can. Okay, so you put all those things together along with the transparency and communication with the community and stuff like that, there's nothing but absolute potential for this game. And of course, if it runs well, then again, it's only going to make the game that much more fun to play, and therefore more players are going to be talking about it, and therefore more players are going to play it. Especially since it's free to play. Now, obviously, the big thing about XDefiant and even SM2 as well is the fact that anti-cheat needs to be working, and it needs to be working at its best, and it needs to be as consistent as possible. And upon this, it needs to be continuously updated. Because as you guys know, going back to my food analogy here, like you can make a hell of a meal, but if you put 1 or 2 ingredients in there that don't belong or that your palate doesn't like, it kind of ruins the whole thing. So with cheating, you know, I mean, even if we have 10% of people, which seems like a small number in comparison to the entire population, even if you have 10% of the people that cheat, okay, like if you had like, let's say 1 million players playing, 10% of that is what, 100,000? So, and how many people are we having in a lobby? There's like what, 16 people in the lobby? That means on average, if they were spread out evenly, it would be, you know, you would get anywhere from 1 to 2 cheaters in a lobby per game. That's what that means. So that's a lot. That's a lot. So they need to really be careful with that, and hopefully it succeeds, because it's really heartbreaking if some people that cheat, you know, ruin the game for everybody else that literally plays it.
Trying to pretend like he's Predator.
So ultimately, when you look at what XDefiant's trying to do, can't help but be absolutely supportive. And I personally think it's only going to get better. I think it's going to start out maybe a little bit slow. Who knows? Or it might start out really great. And then eventually, what's going to happen at the end of it all is that it's really going to pick up, in my opinion. And it's really good because there are, unfortunately, there's a lack of arcade first person shooters right now that are on the market, you know? And the thing is, like with games like Splitgate and stuff like that, those games died out because of a multitude of reasons, and it could be, I don't know, maybe Splitgate died out because of the fact that people didn't like the portals, maybe they didn't like the map design, maybe they didn't like the fact that it actually played like Halo even though there was other elements in there as well, or that it wasn't enough of this and it was some of that. And you know, maybe there was something with Splitgate, you know, that was missing for a lot of people. And they basically said, no, I've had enough. You know, it was good for a while it lasted, and then had enough. So at the end of the day, a game like this needs to have legs, right? In other words, it needs to survive, it needs to thrive, and it needs to keep going. And obviously, they said that there's going to be, you know, DLC content like every 3 months, you know, where they're going to have maps, they're going to have weapons, they're going to have modes and stuff like that. Okay, that's great. It's basically the old formula that there was nothing wrong with in the first place. So, and like I mentioned, there was 1 million players playing the closed beta. And I think there's going to be even more when the open beta happens. I think there's going to be an open beta, but even if there isn't, which I think there should be, but even if there isn't, I think come full release, the game is going to hit new strides, which is awesome. It has a long way to go, but I believe it will get there. Now, when you're looking at a game like SM Squared, it's basically Call of Duty killing Call of Duty, but it's not really killing Call of Duty. It's just that it's offering that different flavor of Call of Duty that is pretty much non-existent today. So, because right now what we're getting with Call of Duty is something along more of the tactical side of things, and there are some people that like it and there are playing it, but there's a lot of people that also do not. So, so basically, people are going, they're going to play something else if they don't like it. But if they do like it, okay, fine, whatever. They'll keep playing it or whatever the deal is. But like I said, there is plenty of room for both of these genres and both of these types of games to exist. 100%. So you just have two flavors of something very similar. And what SM Squared is trying to do is they're trying to be like the Master Chief Collection of Call of Duty without being the Master Chief Collection of Call of Duty, because it's not exactly the same. Because my Master Chief Collection has like filters in terms of, you know, the game modes and how many people you want to play and all that kind of stuff, whereas, you know, this SM Squared is not, but it's doing it in a different way. Basically, it's taking a lot of the maps from, you know, some of the best maps in Call of Duty history, putting them all together along with the weapons, best weapons from the games in Call of Duty history and stuff like that, and putting them in one big ass package, and allowing players to play without skill based matchmaking. And it's going to have a ranked mode, and it's, you know, no pay to win elements, etc., etc. And it's being developed by people that are just like, whatever spare time they have during the week, they're focusing on developing the game, and how that goes, right? That's how they're doing it. They're literally doing it for nothing. They're doing it for no money. And if SM Squared gets to a point where it's that popular and it's turning that many heads, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's like, hey, these guys they didn't get anything for it. They didn't get anything for it. They just did it as a pure passion project, and that's going to turn a lot of heads. And it could turn the tide in terms of how video games are developed today and what's put in them and what's not. I mean, with Activision might not change anything, but in terms of other developers out there that kind of make these shooters or want to make these shooters, I think a game like SM Squared and even XDefiant itself are going to set an example. And I'm glad these games are not alone. Like, I'm glad SM Squared is going to release. You know, I'm glad XDefiant, you know, is what it is. So, um, so if this game actually ends up being very financially successful, or these games end up being very financially successful, in which publishers, as you know, the only language they understand is ching. So, so basically, that if things change for the better, and if a game becomes very popular, heavily populated, and played a good amount, that would generate revenue and money. Guess what? Other games are going to want to follow suit, and other players that are making those sort of games or want to make those sort of games are going to look at the game and they're going to be like, okay, what did these guys do? Like, what did they do? How did they do it? And it's like, let's put our own version of this successful formula to work, because there's a lot of things that are being implemented in games now that just don't work for whatever reason, right? Or, okay, let's put it this way, or could work better with just a little bit more extra time and implementation. But in this day and age, that's just not, it just doesn't seem how game development works these days. we're living in an era where a lot of games are coming out and they're not complete. Um, so uh, so when you put all that together, it's like, okay, um, I can't help but be like, all right, this game has everything it needs in order to succeed, and only time will tell on whether or not that's going to happen, right? So if it does, right, it may not happen right away, but let's just say if it does, if it gets to that point and it succeeds on an immense level like that, I think it could change the tide. Um, I think it could legitimately change the tide in terms of how developers are making their game or how public or what people are putting into their game and stuff like that. And it might inspire others to make a game like this. And when you look at like SM Squared, for instance, and what they're trying to do, like I would just absolutely love it if Microsoft just basically picked those guys up and basically said, you know what, we want to fund you. We want to fund you. We want to expand your team. We want you guys to do what you're doing. What's it gonna take and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like let's make this happen. So because this what's going on here with SM squared, for instance, I don't think it's ever been done before. To where you get a group of passionate players that are working these regular 40-hour a week jobs that take their extra time in order to develop like the ultimate type of Call of Duty game for Call of Duty players for no money, just out of sheer passion. Like, right? Like, does this happen? No. So it's gonna make. I wouldn't be surprised if it makes news. Well, not news headlines, but like gaming news headlines about SM squared, and everybody's gonna know. That's the thing. SM squared. Like people are gonna make videos about this, myself included. Would make squares about SM squares. Would make videos about SM squared, and basically praising the people that put it together because they did it with extra hours of their time and they basically put this thing together, you know, for free, for nothing. So, um, and then people are going to wonder why. People are going to wonder, you know, why did you guys do this, or how did you guys do this, and all this other stuff. So it's like it's things like that, it's actions like those that can spawn change, that can inspire change, right? Especially if the game ends up being successful. Like you're going to get the attention one way or another, but in terms of success, that is going to come later down the line. Like that is going to come later down the line. It's not going to happen right away. And then once that population and the popularity of the game goes up, it's going to be amazing. And the transparency level of like a Mark Rubin or whatnot, and with the game that he's making, you can't go wrong. And then once the game gets released, as far as SM squared goes as well, is that there's going to be, I think, additional transparency and additional things happening. That's what I think. Um, I don't know how. I really don't know how else to put it. The game has both of these games have like a tremendous amount of potential, and I want to see them succeed, and I think they will. All I can say is for XDefiant right now is obviously from a personal standpoint, I would love Free for All to be in there, but from a don't shoot yourself in the foot standpoint, it's like there better be team deathmatch on launch. There better be team deathmatch on launch, or else you'll be shooting yourself in the foot. If there's no team deathmatch on launch, it's a disaster. So you need to have team deathmatch on launch. It just needs to happen. It needs to be there. And
Maybe this is why they have acceleration.
like I said before, there's been nothing but room for a game like this to come in, and I think the timing is absolutely perfect. And I hope they get a second beta. There's supposed to be a second beta with like before the game's release. At least I hope so, as far as I understand. And I am live, but I need to go use the potty. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna get the notification on, so whoever comes in, just a second.
Damn it! I almost had the predator dude though. Now we're recording. I don't know what the hell to use
All
for
right,
drone incineration drone.
we're back.
Hijack.
So
Hijack what? What is
I want to talk about, like,
so
obviously SM squared is
my fellow
tremendously
my fellow teammates could use all that
like the
help.
potential is through the roof, but it does have one it does have one thing.
Oh, that's right. I need to adjust my dead zones as well.
It does have one thing that's kind of holding it back, and that is the fact that it's only limited to PC usage. Now, thankfully, PC now, thankfully, is more popular than it was, many years ago. Thank goodness. But with that being said, uh,
Still need some more dead zones on the right stick.
PC uh, is just one platform, and the big thing that SM Squared
There we go.
would definitely benefit from is crossplay if it was possible, or at least with Microsoft, because the one that I see the most likely picking these guys up if they had the ability to do so would be Microsoft. Like honestly, Microsoft would absolutely like, and they're all about creators and stuff like that, right? And all that other good stuff. So, um, Microsoft is just absolutely like
Seriously.
it would be such a perfect fit for this game, but
Whoa.
because of certain limitations and all that kind of other stuff, well,
On the right.
PC I guess is where it's going to be for the game. And I would love for there to be crossplay at some point in time, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Unfortunately, I do not know. Um, because when you look at back in the day, like when you look at like even different fighting game genres, one of the reasons why some games that were absolute treasures never
Wow.
never got to their full potential was because of the hardware that they would be on, or should I say, lack of hardware as well. Because ultimately, um, what's going on is that like you had games like, let's say, um, Quake, or okay, us take another fighting game genre like for fighting game like Virtual Fighter 2. Um, the problem with Virtual Fighter 2 was that the console that it got released for was not very popular, especially here in the States. And that was the Sega Saturn. So that in and of itself, because
Let's
it was the
find out.
Sega Saturn, um, was what kept it from becoming even bigger. So
Really? You just gonna sit
when
back
you
and
think
watch?
about that concept for a minute, it's like, okay,
Holy
it was
shit.
all because of the lack of,
Classic
it
Nintendo.
wasn't on this platform, but it was on this platform that wasn't as
Holy crap,
popular.
that trades for nothing.
And right now, the fact is that unfortunately, despite the fact that PC gaming is starting to get more popular, which is great, um, it's not anywhere to where like it's nowhere near what consoles are doing, like in terms of the amount of players that they have. Unfortunately, now it is getting bigger, and that's great, but it's not where those other guys are. So what? So I think that that's one thing that might hold the game back a little bit.
Thank you, Lord.
It might hold the game back because ultimately, uh,
Go this way, shit.
um,
Damn, Mr. Clokey over there. Trying to pretend like he's
numbers
Fred.
play a difference, and numbers
Shit.
are what determine on whether or not you're successful in this type of franchise and stuff
Look
like
at
that.
that. Everybody's freaking bunny hopping.
Which pains me to say because SM Squared is going to be is like the ultimate passion project, and there need to be as many eyes on SM Squared as possible. Like, I mean, many eyes. So, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Like when you look back at
Let's
like
go
for
now.
instance, like I bet you Quake would have been even more popular if there was like if it wasn't just on PC.
Shut
Like we all know how difficult Quake is and stuff like that, but like for your average player and everything like that. Um But I mean, it's how do I put this? Like when you have a game, no matter how good it is, and if it's on hardware that's not necessarily that popular, there's a chance that that game might not make it or might not. Well, I don't know about might not make it, but it won't. It might not reach its full potential, and that is to me that is absolutely like heartbreaking. Like heartbreaking. And I don't want that to happen with SM Squared, especially with the kind of love and dedication that these developers are putting towards the game. I don't want that. I don't want that to happen. I want I want these developers to um I want these developers to succeed to the max, but
Holy shit. Everybody's jump shotting and slide canceling like a motherfucker. I don't know,
I
man.
don't know
I don't know about this whole no skill based matchmaking thing of yours.
how do I put this. Like I don't know if it's going to limit the game's success or not. Because in this day and age, PC is at a better place than what it used to be, but it's like just imagine crossplay with SM squared. Like I can't help but imagine
Get out of here,
crossplay with
Solo,
SM
buddy.
squared. Like imagine all the bells and whistles. Imagine you have your Nintendo Switch, imagine but I think one of the reasons why it's that's kind of impossible is because it's like you need to reach to like all those guys to make it happen. And I think ultimately in order to do that, you might need Activision's permission. And the only time you don't need Activision's permission is if you just limit it to like, I don't know, one platform. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of this, and I don't know if they can, um, you know, who knows? Maybe just being on PC is part of their winning formula, but I don't know. I mean, the good news is you don't have to have the most powerful PC.
Love how the aim assist
You really
is
don't. Even with the upgraded engine that I made a video talking about it, you don't have to have the most powerful PC. But it just so happens that a lot of players just don't play on PC. I hope they have a PC, um, but they just don't play on PC. Most people don't. Thankfully, they added what's it called? They added controller support, and that's another thing. I'm really interested to see what the aim assist is going to be like on SM squared. We already know what it's like on XDefiant, which is great, but I want to see what it's like on SM squared. I'm really interested to see what it's going to be like on SM squared. And I'm actually wondering now how much longer it's going to be before we get like any sort of closed beta or open beta or whatever it is with SM squared, like until we reach that next level. I'm legitimately wondering what it's going to be like when it's going to come out. It may not even be this year. I don't know. But I want the game to come out. But I also only want the game to come out when it's ready. There was I want to give you a prime example. Duke Nukem Forever, right? You know Duke Nukem Forever, right? So Duke Nukem Forever, before we got what we got when that game came out, there was another version of that game that looked way better, and they released a trailer of it. And then at the end of that trailer, it said when it's ready. Because people were going to be wondering when do I get to play it when it's ready, and that's how it ended. But the thing is, the guys wanted to stay cutting edge, and basically, um, um, they never got ahead with the game, and then they had to change everything. And then by the time Gearbox took over, they're like, okay, all the artwork is pretty much done, and then all we're going to do is just wrap it up. and then they just made it a little bit more interactive and all that kind of stuff. So,
I can guarantee you that's what's screwing me up. All right. Specifically on the left stick too. Yeah.
and we just never got that original version of Duke Nukem Forever, but that's, you know, but basically, and then of course I got this little. We don't care about pad thai, but PC could work out really well, and at the same time maybe not so well. I don't know.
Surrounded. I had to get the hell out of there. Thank you, team.
I
Okay.
I really just
Let me
hope
get safe.
that it happens.
I need to.
I really don't want the game to be held back just because it's on PC. And that's where my mind keeps going, is that it's just not going to reach its full potential. Sucks because I want it to reach its full potential. Um, but hey, I could very well be wrong. I could very well be wrong. I could be like, hey, you know what? I could be wrong, and it could work out just fine. So
Still feels a little funky.
I don't know, but yeah, this commentary's kind of been all over the place. Definitely not as consistent as it was when I did my practice run,
I don't know why I hesitated. I couldn't see the red.
but yeah, just the end of the day and kind of multitasking. So, but I'm enthusiastic, but I really would like for
Thought I saw your ass.
the game, I really would like for the game to be crossplay, but that's not going to happen. But at least we got that with XDefiant, and then we'll see in the long run what happens with the next game
What the fuck?
with SM
Seriously?
squared.
See, this is where I
But anyway,
wish we had.
I got a few things to do, so I'm going to end it here. So I hope you guys are enthusiastic about those two games. I think the potential is really high, but it all really just depends on what's going to happen. And I hope that Activision doesn't come after those guys. You know, the SM squared people,
Eventually, I'm gonna have to try an SMG.
which would seem like a really big dick move, but I don't think does Activision really care how bad it makes them look? I don't think so. I really don't. And in their eyes, it probably doesn't make them look bad. So I don't know. We'll see.
This dev guy.
But anyway, I'm gonna go, and then probably later on tonight I'll be back with like a movie com or something like that, or I don't know, I'm still deciding on what I want to watch, and then I gotta look at my Amazon Prime account to see if to see what else I got there, because I'm like, oh crap, I forgot. I don't just have Netflix and HBO Max. I've got Amazon Prime as well. So I'm gonna look into that and see what other options I have on there, and I'm pretty sure I've got good ones. So anyway, for those of you guys that see this later or whatnot, I'm sorry for the all over the place commentary, but
So fucking
my mind is
funky.
just kind of all over the place.
Turned up my
And
FPS.
but yeah, maybe next time I'll get we can get RMD Dizzle in the Discord and we can talk about this openly
With
over the
the
mic. So
acceleration.
anyway, uh, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night or whatnot. And for those of you guys that come by the movie comms or whatever, I'll see you then. Have a good one.